Ever wondered how the God of Israel managed to juggle so many things at once? He's the divine multitasker, orchestrating personal, national, and universal redemption. Ready to see how the ordinary becomes extraordinary under His watchful eye? Join us on this journey of divine intervention and redemption, where the mundane meets the miraculous, and discover how the God of Israel works wonders in the most unexpected ways. Got your curiosity piqued yet? Let's dive in. Imagine a story set in ancient times, filled with love, loyalty, and a sprinkle of unexpected humor. Meet Ruth. Ruth isn't just any character. She's a Moabite widow who becomes one of the most celebrated women in the Bible. Picture a young woman from a foreign land who, instead of returning to her family after her husband's death, sticks with her mother-in-law, Naomi. Who does that? The backstory? Once upon a time, in the ancient land of Moab, there lived a woman named Ruth. Now, Ruth was not your average Moabite woman. She had a heart as big as a camel's hump and a sense of loyalty that would make a golden retriever look like a flake. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Ruth was married to a nice Moabite man, but their happiness was short-lived when tragedy struck, and Ruth found herself a young widow. Her mother-in-law, Naomi, had it even worse. She lost both her husband and her 2 sons, including Ruth's husband. Talk about a rough patch. Naomi decided to return to her homeland, Bethlehem, and urged her daughters-in-law to stay in Moab and start fresh. Ruth's sister-in-law, Orpah, tearfully agreed and stayed behind. But Ruth? Oh no, she wasn't going anywhere. She clung to Naomi like a barnacle on a ship's hull. Ruth declared, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried." Naomi, realizing she had no choice but to accept this unwavering loyalty, sighed and muttered, "All right then, let's go." They set off on the journey to Bethlehem, arriving just in time for the barley harvest. Now, Ruth had to find a way to support both herself and Naomi. She decided to go gleaning, picking up leftover grains in the fields, which was a bit like dumpster diving, but with more fiber. When Ruth rolled into Bethlehem, she was the ultimate outsider. Wrong heritage, wrong religion, wrong gender, and even the wrong marital status. Basically, she ticked off all the "you're not welcome here" boxes. The only thing she had to offer Naomi, besides her stellar company, was her knack for gleaning. Think of it as the ancient version of collecting social welfare, but with more sweat and fewer forms to fill out. As fate would have it, Ruth ended up in the fields of Boaz, a wealthy and influential man who also happened to be a relative of Naomi's late husband. Cue dramatic music. Boaz noticed Ruth almost immediately. Maybe it was her determination, or maybe it was just the way the sun glinted off her gleaning basket. Either way, Boaz was intrigued. He approached Ruth and said, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me." Ruth, probably thinking, "Score! This place has shade and snacks." Agreed. Boaz continued to look out for Ruth, making sure she had enough grain to take home, and even instructed his workers to leave extra stalks for her. Ruth returned home to Naomi with an impressive haul. Naomi, with a twinkle in her eye, asked, "Where did you glean today? Whose field were you in? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." When Ruth told her about Boaz, Naomi practically did a jig. She explained that Boaz was a kinsman redeemer, someone who could potentially marry Ruth to preserve the family's lineage. Naomi then hatched a plan that was part matchmaking and part espionage. She told Ruth to wash up, put on her best clothes, and go to the threshing floor where Boaz would be working late into the night. Ruth was to wait until Boaz had eaten and drunk, then lie down at his feet and uncover them. This was an ancient custom that basically said, "Hey, I'm available for marriage." A bit forward, yes, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Ruth did as Naomi instructed. Boaz woke up in the middle of the night, startled to find a woman at his feet. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am your servant, Ruth," she replied. "Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family." Boaz, impressed by Ruth's bravery and her loyalty to Naomi, agreed to take care of the matter. He mentioned there was another man who was a closer relative and had the first right to redeem, but Boaz would sort it out. The next day, Boaz went to the town gate, the ancient equivalent of City Hall, and addressed the other kinsman redeemer in front of the town elders. The other man declined, citing complications, and Boaz happily stepped in. Ruth and Boaz were married, and their union was blessed with a son named Obed. Naomi's joy was restored, and the women of the town said, "Naomi has a son." Obed would become the grandfather of King David, making Ruth a pivotal figure in the lineage leading to Jesus. Ruth's story is a tale of steadfast loyalty. She's the original ride or die. Despite Naomi's insistence to go back to her own people, Ruth famously declared, "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay." Talk about dedication. But what does she get in return for this loyalty? Ruth goes from gleaning leftovers in a field to catching the eye of Boaz, a man who just happens to be a relative of Naomi's late husband. Coincidence? A well-timed stroll through the grain? Or just plain divine intervention? Ruth doesn't just secure her future and Naomi's. She ends up becoming the great-grandmother of King David. Yep, that David, the giant-slaying, psalm-writing king of Israel. Not too shabby for a Moabite widow, right? Strength. 1. Loyalty and faithfulness. Ruth's unwavering loyalty to her mother-in-law, Naomi, is one of her most notable strengths. Despite being urged to return to her own people, Ruth famously declares, "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." 2. Hard work and diligence. Ruth's dedication to providing for Naomi is evident in her willingness to work hard in the fields, gleaning barley to ensure they have food. Her industriousness earns her the respect of Boaz and others in the community. 3. Humility and grace. Ruth demonstrates humility and grace in her interactions, particularly with Boaz. She approaches him with respect and follows Naomi's guidance with a humble heart. 4. Courage and initiative. Ruth shows great courage in leaving her homeland and family to support Naomi in a foreign land. She also takes the initiative in seeking out Boaz as a kinsman redeemer, following Naomi's plan with bravery and faith. 5. Faith in God. Ruth's conversion to the faith of Naomi and her reliance on God throughout her journey highlight her spiritual strength and trust in God's providence. Weaknesses. Ruth had a few notable weaknesses that made her story all the more compelling. One of her primary weaknesses was her initial status as an outsider. As a Moabite, she faced significant cultural and social barriers when she moved to Bethlehem with her mother-in-law, Naomi. This outsider status could have isolated her, but instead, it highlighted her incredible resilience and loyalty. Another weakness was her vulnerability as a widow in a foreign land. Without a husband or immediate family to support her, Ruth had to rely on the kindness of strangers and the generosity of others to survive. This vulnerability was a double-edged sword. It exposed her to potential exploitation, but it also set the stage for her remarkable courage and determination. Additionally, Ruth's economic hardships were a significant weakness. Her need to glean in the fields for food was a humbling and arduous task. However, it also underscored her hard work and humility, qualities that ultimately won her favor in the eyes of Boaz and the community. Despite these weaknesses, Ruth's story is one of strength, loyalty, and faith, making her an enduring and inspiring figure. So what can we learn from Ruth's story? Is it the power of loyalty and love? The importance of community and family? Or maybe it's just that sometimes you need a bit of barley and a lot of chutzpah to find your happily ever after. What do you think? Well, despite being a young believer, Ruth demonstrated incredible faith. She believed that there was a purpose waiting for her, that God was exactly who He claimed to be, and that He would provide for both her and Naomi. If you're feeling lost or uncertain, start with faith. As Hebrews 11:1 puts it, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen.